Sports Illustrated senior basketball writer, joining us. Hey, Mannix, how are you?
What's happening, Dan?
All right, you want to answer the poll question? McLovin, give it to Mannix.
Okay, if you had to lose one, who would you want to keep if you're the Warriors, Kevin Durant or Draymond Green?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. It's Kevin Durant. I think there's going. I wrote a little bit about this today. There's going to be some questions internally in Golden State about how much you pay Draymond Green in 2020. I mean, he's going to be looking for that max level payday, but I believe he's going to be 30 when that contract comes up, and he doesn't have the type of game that I think will age, and other people think really will age particularly well. I mean, he's a bit undersized for his position, and he doesn't have a strong perimeter game. So you throw those two things in, and do you really want to give a player like that, as great as Draymond has been defensively for that team, a 5-year deal that could come, in the radius of $200 million? I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that Kevin Durant's the guy you invest in.
I'm shocked that they suspended Draymond Green for a game, but are there any more details aside from what he was saying to Durant or what he called him that would warrant a one-game suspension, a public humiliation?
I've asked around, and the sense that I get is the language and the tone of it. It wasn't that there was a confrontation in the locker room. You probably talked about this, but a couple of years ago when he and Steve Kerr went at it in the locker room, I mean, that if that doesn't warrant a suspension, kind of going after your coach and having to be separated physically, I mean, I don't know what is, but I think it was the language and the tone that he used. I know that Draymond's a fiery guy, but I do put a lot of this on Draymond Green because, look, he made a mistake in that moment in the game. I mean, it was a clear mistake. He should have handed the ball to Durant in that moment. Instead, it almost reminded me of that scene in Fresh Prince where, Carlton throws the ball at the rim, not passing the ball to Will Smith at the end of a game. But he should have given the ball to Durant in that moment. And if he had just walked away from that and kind of tapped his chest, said, "My bad," it would have diffused the whole thing. Instead, he got really defensive. Now, that in and of itself didn't warrant a suspension, but the language he used, from what I was told, is what brought it to that level.
Okay, but if you're Kevin Durant, if Draymond Green has a problem with Kevin Durant, that, you're making this season all about you and free agency next year, why would you want to continue to play with Draymond Green if he acts this way? So I don't understand. He recruited Kevin Durant, but what he's saying and how he acts to Kevin Durant, that's not going to lead Kevin Durant to going, you know what, on second thought, maybe I'll take less and stay with Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I don't know that Kevin Durant is thinking that far ahead right now. I think Kevin Durant is looking at this season and how he can best win, and Draymond Green is how he can best win. And look, these two, if you go back, there's YouTube clips everywhere. They have had some very visible on-court spats about where a guy's supposed to be and, offense, defense stuff. So this is an elevated version of what they've gone through, but it's not the first time they've kind of gone through all this stuff. So I think they'll be able to put it past them. And ultimately, Dan, I'm not sure that Draymond Green and KD's feelings about him is going to be the most influential thing or even a influential thing in his decision this summer. I think there's going to be a lot of variables for him, including some off-the-court things he probably wants to get into.
Yeah, but I get the feeling that he's gone from Golden State.
I do too. No, I wrote this today, and there are when you talk about big free agents over the last 5 or 6 years, whether it's LeBron at different points or others, there's always some ambiguity amongst NBA types. Like, well, I don't know. I mean, he could stay in Cleveland, he could go stay in Miami. Other guys, they could go here or there. There are more people that speak with absolute certainty about Kevin Durant leaving Golden State than I've ever seen before. I mean, guys that I talk to regularly that kind of like to speculate about this stuff, and some of it is informed speculation, but they say with absolute certainty, no chance that Kevin Durant comes back there. So it's surprising that that's the attitude across the league.
We're talking to Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior basketball writer. And then the question, could you see him playing with LeBron James? I know Stephen A. Smith said he thinks it's the Knicks or the Lakers. I think it's the Knicks. But would Kevin Durant help LeBron's legacy? I don't know if there's competition on who's the better player. I don't know if KD's wired that way, but do you want to go to the Lakers and maybe you help LeBron get 1 or 2 more titles, and then all of a sudden you've changed his status maybe in people's minds?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And to tweak it a little bit, I don't know that Kevin Durant minds, LeBron winning championships. I think he wants to be the guy that wins more. And, the biggest reason I was told by different people that Kevin won't wind up in Los Angeles with the Lakers is because of that. Because he wants to be, assuming he gets that third championship this year, he wants to be the Kobe of this era, the Michael Jordan of this era, the Magic of this era. He wants to be the guy that has the most championships. And you can't do that if you're going down there and sharing championships with LeBron. The other part of it is, I think there's a keen awareness amongst NBA players of what it means to win in New York. I mean, you win in New York, it's like winning 3 championships somewhere else. I mean, they haven't won anything since the early 1970s. You become a star on a different level if you can lead that Knicks team to a championship. And I don't know how big a factor this would be for Durant, but you'd be doing something that LeBron James refused to do. I mean, in 2010, LeBron passed on a chance to go to the Knicks and rebuild them into a championship contender. Kevin Durant could go to the Knicks and do what he didn't.
Jimmy Butler made his debut last night, 76ers losing to Orlando. But if I gave you the 76ers or the field in the East, who are you taking?
That's easy. I'm taking the field.
Okay.
I don't.
Is Boston still better and Toronto?
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah, Boston, Toronto, maybe Milwaukee, I think, are still better at this point. It doesn't – throwing guys together and assuming they'll work, it never really made any sense to me. There's too many examples of the times that didn't work. The Sixers, to me, still have massive shooting problems. Now, it's a good move to have J.J. Redick as a starter now out there on the floor with Jimmy Butler. If for no other reason than maybe a less pressure-filled situation can do something to rehabilitate Markelle Fultz into a usable piece with that team. But, yeah, how do they get enough floor spacing? End-of-game situations, Dan. Can you keep Ben Simmons on the floor if Jimmy Butler's the guy? Jimmy Butler also hasn't played up-tempo in a number of years. Ben Simmons plays up-tempo all the time. There's still a lot of question marks about this team where there aren't as many question marks about Toronto, Boston once they eventually get it together, and even Milwaukee, which is a really good team right now.
Is Carmelo done?
No, he's not done. There are going to be teams that are willing to give him to sign him. I think if he gets waived, and it may be a situation where he gets waived with the understanding that Team X is going to pick him up, there's going to be a team out there. Miami wanted him pretty badly this offseason. Portland's been trying to get him for like 3 years, so I don't think that interest has waned significantly. So whether it's one of those two teams or somebody else, somebody's going to be willing to take a flyer on Carmelo.
What is happening in Houston, though? Because this is, I think it's become habit forming here. At first you go, well, it's just a coincidence they're not playing well. And now all of a sudden we're looking at them and saying, is this who the Rockets are?
Well, a couple of things are contributing to this. You can throw injuries in, but everybody kind of has injuries, and Harden being out for a stretch is certainly a factor. They made what I thought at the time and looks like now a big mistake, not bringing the band back together. Letting Trevor Ariza walk. I know we got a big 1-year deal that would have had pretty significant luxury tax implications, but Trevor Ariza, in addition to what he did on the floor, was a great glue guy in the locker room. Luke Mbah-a-Moute, to a lesser degree, was a huge part of that defense. I know they got James Ennis, and he's a good player, but I don't know why it didn't make absolute sense to bring everybody back, no matter the cost, on a team that was up 3-2 in the conference finals. The other thing that doesn't get talked about enough was the retirement and now unretirement of Jeff Bzdelik, who was the guy that Mike D'Antoni leaned on to run the defense every single night. Now, in different stops, Mike's had different guys. In New York, it was Mike Woodson. In Houston, it's Jeff Bzdelik. So him walking away that late in the offseason, I think, had a big effect on what they do defensively. They can still rally at this point, but their roster is not as good as what it was at the end of last year.
I know that you were in Los Angeles, had a chance to take in Fritzie's stand-up act at the Comedy Store. What'd you make of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
okay, if Fritzie was an NBA team, his performance was an NBA team.
That's a good question. Sacramento, it was. It had some talent, but it was dysfunctional at times. If that makes sense.
Okay.
I would say this, Dan. It would have been funnier if I didn't know Fritzy. Like, I'm sitting there, and I now have way too much information about what happens in his bedroom. I mean, there was just a lot of inside information to the point where I don't think, and I don't know if this will ever happen, but I don't think I can ever be in the same room with Fritzy and his wife because I just can't. There was some sports metaphors that were all over the place. I can't do it.
Okay. But the Sacramento Kings do have potential, young and promising.
I agree. Look, he wasn't – there was some – I mean, look, being a stand-up comic has got to be tough. There were some bad stand-up comics that night. So I think he's got potential. His jokes were solid. I just sort of was a little uncomfortable with the subject matter, if you will. It kind of made me squirm a little bit.
All right. Well, it's a fair assessment, and I appreciate that as always. Fritzy, you have a response for Chris Mannix?
I think that was very fair and well said. I'll take a up and coming Sacramento Kings, and a lot of people would be uncomfortable with some blue humor and inflammatory bowel disease right off the bat, and I can understand why he may not want to hang out with me and the wife at a future dinner gathering. That would be extremely uncomfortable.
Thank you, Todd.
I mean, there were flags coming out of places. I don't know what was going on.
Roughing the spouse, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, Dan.
That's Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior writer.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.